Hello Wargamers, this is the third part of the painting job on Louen Leoncouer. This time I will talk about the assembly, I will show some tips, and then what are the base colors I'm applying on the Hippogryph. So first of all, I have to say that I paint the inside of the back legs before assembling. As you can see here, I did first video tip how to do the chainmail. You can click on the box. And I also paint the leg and the hair on the leg. The colors that I use is Morphag brown for the darker brown and Tauset ochre for the skin. This is the color I will use later on for the whole body. So the point to paint this before is once the full hippogryph is assembled, this area is almost impossible to reach. So I prefer to paint and to give the basic colors and also some shading before the assembly. Don't have to look perfectly because it's not, you don't see this very well when it's assembled, but it's good that you at least you apply the basic colors, and if somebody is looking once assembled, you have the impression that everything is painted inside. So it's important that you look how the miniature will look like once it's assembled and paint these areas before assembling. I missed to make the pictures, but I missed the pictures on the washes. What I did after, when this is dry up, I did a wash with Griffon sepia on the skin, and then I did a wash on Aglax air shade on the darker brown areas. And then I start doing the assembly. And I put this picture because I have to fill a big gap on the neck of this monster. So it happens a lot of time, especially when you assemble metal miniatures, that sometimes it's not fitting correctly. So you need to use green stuff, or in this case I use two components, gray stuff, but it's the same, or you use liquid green stuff to cover small crevices. So as you see, also the union between the wing and the body is not perfect, and there is a small gap. In that picture I want to show you that I assembled everything together, and this is the part I paint before the assembly. So as you can see, this area is very difficult to reach. So it's good that you paint it before. But now I will need to do some retouches because there are some small gap, and I will cover this with liquid green stuff. This is how it's looking like once the full miniature is assembled, or the full griffon in that case. Rider will be done apart, and then I will assemble the rider on top of the monster once it's completely painted. Another thing I have to comment here, I just started to do the prime, but I will do white prime on the whole miniature once all the gaps are filled. And I will prime it, of course, using a normal brush, as there are some areas that I paint before that I don't want to dirt with the prime. And here you can see that I start applying green stuff, liquid green stuff, on some of the unions between the two parts. See that also in the part that I painted before, I had to play a little bit to minimize the gap between the two sides of the body. This is the green stuff I'm using, so it's the liquid green stuff from Citadel. And this is how it's looking like. So it's like a very thick paint. The texture is like a very thick paint, and normally I apply this using an old brush. So you pick some with an old brush, and then you apply on the area that you want to cover. So normally on the unions between two parts. And again, this is how you apply that. So you, with a brush, you apply this on, for example, in the union between left and right side of the body. And I also apply this at the bottom, around the wings union with the main body. Once you do the prime on top and then you paint with the basic colors, this green stuff will not be seen. You have to wait for a while, and normally what I do is apply green stuff and I don't touch the miniature since the day after. So I normally wait almost 24 hours to start working with this miniature again. Here, after applying the green stuff, then I did a white prime using the prime from Citadel that is called Ceramide White, and I dilute quite a little bit and apply all over the miniature. Of course, I don't paint the inside that I painted before. This is the Ceramide White that I use for the prime of this miniature. And once the prime is completely dry, I recommend you to wait at least 30 minutes to ensure that the prime is completely dry and is well cured on the miniature. Then I start doing the main colors on this miniature. And I start using Taucher Ochre for the whole body. And here you can see that after painting with Taucher Ochre, you cannot see the union between the two parts. Another picture after painting with Taucher Ochre. Okay, I did the main body before assembling the miniature on the base because it's easier to do the bottom part and the breast of the miniature without having any risk of dirtying the base. And then, to be easier for me to handle this miniature, I decided to glue it on the base, as you can see here. And in that picture I also want to show that there is quite a big union gap between the leg and the body. So this is how it's looking like at that stage once I glued the miniature on the base. Of course, I use Loctite to super glue, so I need to wait at least for 2 or 3 hours to make sure that the glue is completely cured. And to cover the gap, I use again liquid green stuff. So I will need to repaint this area again, but it's worth to apply a little bit of green stuff to cover the union. And this is how it's looking like after painting again on top of the green stuff. As you can see, now there is no gap between the two parts, and I didn't lose any part of the detail. For the barding, I use corn red, and I use Morphac brown for all the hairy areas, like the tail and on the legs. Okay, this is how it's looking like when I apply the main color for the skin and the barding color. I have to say that when I apply red, I prefer not to be very precise and paint over the other colors, because I want to avoid to have white gaps between the two paints later on. And then I start doing all the different bells that this miniature have. I start with the thick one that is at the bottom, and I use a very dark brown called Reynolds brown in that case. Sorry, the right name is Reynolds High. This is the color I use for most of the bells. Here another picture where I want to show that I also use corn red on other part of the miniature. I'm using Abaddon black for all the parts that will have later on metallic. So in that case I use on the bottom of the hands of the monster. So I use there is a small armor plates, and then also the feet and legs of the rider. Then I continue applying Reynolds height as I explained before on the different belts. So I want to finish with that image because on the next video I will talk about how I did the barding of this monster. And that's all for this work in progress video. Thanks very much for watching. Please comment or like if you like it, and be ready for next part soon. See you again later. Bye.